the golden-haired disappointment. Steel screamed against the training dummy as Aram unleashed another strike, each blow a percussive echo of his inner turmoil. Sweat slicked his temples, his once pristine golden locks now clinging to his brow, a defiant disarray against the forced elegance of his attire. He pictured Master Gillis's prim visage replacing the dummy's bland features, the man's endless recitations of tariffs and trade agreements echoing in his mind. "Drive it home, Aram?" Gareth's voice, sharp and precise, sliced through the yard's clamor. He lounged against the weathered stone wall, arms folded, amusement dancing in his eyes, ever the picture of collected composure, dark hair restrained, tunic crisp and unblemished. An exasperating study in responsibility. Aram grunted, whirling the blunted sword. "Force I have, Gareth. What I crave is challenge." "Perhaps you're underestimating Barnaby," Gareth countered, pushing off the wall. "He seems to be taking quite a beating." He gestured to the ravaged dummy, its straw innards scattering like a disemboweled goose. Aram's face darkened. "Barnaby offers no riposte. Barnaby feels no pain." He hurled the sword aside, the heavy thud emphasizing his frustration. "I need more, Gareth. I yearn for adventure." "Adventure?" Gareth arched a brow. "You envision glory and spoils? Expect grime, wounds, and a hasty end at the point of a corroded blade. Preferable to stagnation within these gilded walls," Aram snapped, towing a pebble across the hard-packed earth. "Father desires me settled, a landed noble, content to tally coffers and sire heirs. He imagines a simpering wife, plump and compliant, as the solution." Gareth remained silent, his gaze drawn to the distant, rolling hills beyond the fortifications. He understood, Aram knew, perhaps more acutely than anyone. They had been confidants since boyhood, sharing whispered ambitions of breaking free from Thorn Castle, of etching their names into legend. Yet Gareth, grounded and practical, had embraced his role as advisor, content to bolster the throne, not occupy it. A servant materialized, bowing deeply. "My lord, a courier from House Elmsworth. He bears a likeness for your consideration." Aram groaned, raking a hand through his damp hair. "Precisely what I required. Another reminder of my impending fate." He shot Gareth a pleading look. "Tell them I am occupied. Tell them I have expired." Gareth merely shook his head, a knowing glimmer in his eyes. "Better to confront it directly. Besides, Lady Ilara might surprise you." "A diamond in the rough is still destined for a ring," Aram grumbled, trailing after the servant towards the castle's interior. In the solar, the portrait stood waiting, leaning against an ornate easel. It was larger than anticipated, the canvas framed in darkly polished wood. He paused, steeling himself. The last painted prospect had borne an uncanny resemblance to a particularly ill-tempered badger. He spun it around. Ilara Elmsworth gazed back, her painted eyes a startlingly pale blue, almost ethereal. The artist had lavished attention on her hair, rendering it as liquid gold cascading over her shoulders. Her skin was luminous, her lips formed a modest, almost shy curve. She was undeniably striking. A flicker stirred within Aram, something akin to disappointment. He had anticipated something more vibrant. A spark of rebellion, a hint of fire. Instead, he was met with a demure, almost vacant beauty, a delicate figurine crafted to perfection. The ideal Baroness Thorn, destined for breeding and boredom. He averted his gaze, a wave of revulsion washing over him. "Is this all?" he demanded of the messenger who hovered near the doorway. "Is this House Elmsworth's full offering?" The messenger, a callow youth with wide, apprehensive eyes, stammered, My lord, the likeness is considered exceptionally accurate. Lady Ilara is renowned for her beauty and grace." "Beauty and grace?" Aram scoffed. "As if those are the only virtues that hold worth." He began to pace, agitation building with each stride. "I seek a partner, not a decorative piece. I desire one who can ride, fight, debate, not one who swoons at the sight of an insect." The messenger remained mute, his gaze glued to the floor. Aram sighed, dragging a hand through his disheveled hair. He knew his behavior was unreasonable, bordering on petulant. But the prospect of being shackled to this exquisite stranger for life filled him with a stifling dread. "Inform Lord Elmsworth," he stated, his voice flat and toneless, "that I am grateful for his consideration. I shall contemplate the portrait carefully." With a curt nod, he dismissed the messenger. Once alone, he collapsed into a chair, the image of Ilara's translucent eyes searing his mind. He closed his own, attempting to conjure a different vision, himself leading a charge, blade aloft, his men surging forward behind him. Himself as a hero, not a husband. Gareth entered, his expression unreadable. Well, he inquired. Your assessment? She is beautiful, Aram replied, his voice devoid of all feeling. Devastatingly, flawlessly beautiful. But, Gareth pressed. But she seems inanimate, Aram confessed, opening his eyes. A construct. A carefully curated deception. I crave authenticity, Gareth. I crave something more. He rose and approached the window, staring out at the deserted training yard. The discarded sword lay on the ground, a silent testament to his disaffection. Do you recall, he murmured, his voice barely audible, when we were children, promising each other we would never be confined here? We dreamed of exploring uncharted lands, battling mythical beasts, rescuing damsels. Gareth paused before responding. We were boys, Aram. Boys are prone to fanciful promises. But the yearning remains, Gareth, Aram declared, turning to face his friend. I still crave adventure. I still crave more than this. He gestured broadly, encompassing the room, the castle, his very existence. And that seems unattainable if I wed Alara Elmsworth. Defeated, he sank back into the chair. I am ensnared, Gareth. Condemned to a life I never desired. The most galling aspect, he added, his voice laced with bitterness, is that I cannot voice my true sentiments to anyone. Father would never comprehend. He views me as a mere instrument in his political machinations, not as an individual with his own aspirations. He fixed his gaze on Gareth, his eyes beseeching. You alone understand, Gareth. You are the only one aware of how acutely this gilded cage suffocates me. He swallowed hard. And soon you too will be bound to it. My father expects you to guide me, to mold me, to assist me in becoming a proper baron. How can I possibly fulfill that role, Gareth? How can I lead when I myself am so utterly lost? Meadowsweet's gentle arrival. Dust devils danced around the approaching carriage, briefly veiling the Meadowsweet crest, a solitary silver bloom embroidered on azure. As the conveyance lumbered closer, Aram leaned against the keep's battlement, arms folded, a dark look marring his features. He observed the arrival with detached interest, as though it were a stage drama playing out in the distance. Before the lackey could unfold the step, Lady Alara Meadowsweet had alighted with surprising grace for one of her standing. Ignoring the proffered hand, she dropped to her knees beside the road, riveted by something in the dirt. Baron Theron Thorne descended the keep steps, his expression a courteous expectancy. Lady Alara, welcome to Thorhold, he announced, his voice booming across the yard. Alara glanced up, her face framed by a cascade of auburn curls escaping her hood. Baron Thorne, she replied, her tone soft yet distinct. Thank you for your hospitality. She then indicated the ground. I believe we have a patient requiring aid. A small songbird lay in the dirt, its wing angled awkwardly. While others might have dismissed it as trivial, Alara's brow creased with concern. Delicately, she gathered the bird up, cradling it. Her touch was tender, confident. From a pouch, she withdrew a vial of amber liquid and a linen strip. A capable healer, Theron remarked, a note of approval in his tone. Aram remained impassive. Nonsense, he muttered. With nimble fingers, Alara set the bird's wing, whispering comforting words. Her actions were efficient, betraying long practice. The bird, remarkably still, nestled into her palm. She placed the creature in a small, cushioned box provided by her attendants. Only then did she turn her gaze to the Baron. Her eyes, the shade of maple syrup, met his, and a small, genuine smile graced her lips. Now, Baron Thorne, I believe I am ready for that welcome. Clearly won over, Theron offered his arm. Come, my dear. The journey must have wearied you. Aram remained by the wall, watching as Alara, head held high, accompanied his father into the keep. He didn't stir to greet her, offer a greeting, or even acknowledge her existence. Later, within the seclusion of Theron's solar, Aram stalked before the hearth, his agitation barely leashed. The fragrance of wood smoke mingled with a lingering trace of lavender, hers. He'd noticed it, a ghostly presence, after she'd passed by. Father, you cannot seriously think this is a suitable match, Aram exploded, gesturing wildly. Did you see her with that creature? Such fragile sensitivities. She'll swoon at a drop of blood, I wager, and I'm meant to lead armies with her as my wife. Theron sighed, sinking into his chair. Firelight painted shifting patterns on his lined face, emphasizing the worry creasing his brow. Aram, be reasonable. Lady Alara is of noble birth. She has a reputation for kindness and healing. These are valuable attributes. Valuable for a hedge witch, perhaps not the consort of a future baron. Aram shot back, his voice sharpening. I require a woman of strength, one who understands the harshness of our world, not someone who fusses over crippled finches. Theron's expression hardened. You require a wife, Aram. A truth you will learn soon enough. He rose, his movements weary. Lady Alara is our guest. Treat her with respect. That is all I ask. Aram watched his father's departure, his frustration simmering. He stared into the fire, seeing not its warmth, but the suffocating walls of his future. The delicate arrival of meadowsweet felt less like springtime's promise and more like tendrils of ivy, slowly strangling him in a life he did not desire. Duty and disappointment. The echoes of his father's booming voice still vibrated in Aram's skull. Duty, Aram. Thorhold needs this alliance. Are you truly so selfish that you would jeopardize its future for your own whims? Whims. As if the woman destined to be his wife was a passing fancy, a flavorless wine he could simply refuse. He gripped the hilt of his practiced sword, the leather cool against his sweating palm. He longed to be on the training grounds, the clang of steel a welcome distraction from the suffocating weight of expectation. But even there, the whispers would follow him, Aram Thorn, defying his father. Aram Thorn, risking Thorhold. He kicked a loose stone across the courtyard. She's soft, father. She'll wither at the first sign of hardship. Thorhold needs strength, not flowers. Theron sighed, the sound heavy with disappointment. Strength takes many forms, Aram. Open your eyes. You might be surprised. He turned and walked away, leaving Aram to stew in his defiance. Later that day, Alara found herself drawn to the village, the cluster of thatched roofs and bustling market stalls a welcome change from the cold grandeur of Thorhold. Sister Agnes, her face etched with the wisdom of years spent tending to the sick and injured, greeted her with a warm smile. Welcome, Lady Alara, she said, her voice raspy but kind. It warms my heart to see you take an interest in our humble lives. Alara blushed slightly. Please call me Alara. I wish to learn how I can be of assistance. Sister Agnes led her to a small garden bursting with fragrant herbs. These are the true treasures of Thorhold, child. Healing can be found in the most unexpected places. She pointed to a patch of lavender, its purple blossoms swaying gently in the breeze. Lavender for calming the mind. Chamomile for soothing the stomach. And this, she said, gesturing to a plant with delicate white flowers, is feverfew, a powerful remedy for headaches. Alara listened intently, her fingers tracing the velvety leaves. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced since arriving at Thornhold. Here, among the earthy scents and the quiet hum of the village, she could almost forget the disapproving glances and the whispered doubts. The trick, Sister Agnes continued, her eyes twinkling, is not just knowing the herbs, but knowing the people, understanding their pain, their fears, their hopes. As Alara helped Sister Agnes prepare a poultice for a villager suffering from a cough, she noticed a figure standing at the edge of the market square, partially concealed by the shadow of a grain cart. It was Aram. He was watching her, his expression unreadable. He remained there for a long moment, then turned and disappeared into the crowd. Aram cursed under his breath. He'd come to the village seeking escape, hoping to lose himself in the familiar sights and sounds. But his gaze had been drawn, against his will, to Alara. She was laughing, genuinely laughing, as a small child presented her with a wilting sunflower. He saw her kneel, her movements graceful and unhurried, and gently rearrange the petals. He wanted to dismiss it as a performance, a calculated attempt to win over the villagers. But something in her genuine warmth, in the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled, gave him pause. He still couldn't reconcile this gentle woman with the image of a baroness, a leader who could command respect and defend Thorhold. But a seed of doubt, small and unwelcome, had been planted in his mind. Maybe, just maybe, he was wrong. Maybe there was more to Alara Meadowsweet than met the eye. The thought, instead of bringing him relief, only intensified his frustration. He yearned for a reason, any reason, to despise her, to justify his defiance. But the memory of her kindness to the injured bird, the genuine concern in her eyes as she tended to the villager, chipped away at his carefully constructed wall of resentment. He wanted to hate her. But he couldn't. Not entirely. Whispers of sickness. A dry, scraping cough, like wind-blown gravel against flagstones, heralded the onset. Then came the blaze of fever, leaving sufferers drained and trembling, their complexions painted with a burning flush. More insidious than any bodily ailment, a chilling dread began to seep into the villages under Thornhold's mantle. Riding into Oakhaven's market square, Aram found the usual clamor replaced by a subdued disquiet. Deserted stalls displayed their wares, now coated in a film of neglect. Faces were drawn, gazes haunted by shadows. Even the stray dogs, typically squabbling over scraps, languished inert in doorways. What's wrong with them? He demanded, his tone sharper than intended. He addressed Gareth, a stable hand who'd served the Thorne family for decades. Once bright and cheery, Gareth's eyes were now murky with apprehension. They're calling it the rot, Lord, Gareth rasped, pulling his scarf higher. It spreads like wildfire. Old man Hemlock was hearty yesterday, abed with the heat this morn. Aram dismounted, his hand finding the familiar grip of his sword. The healers? Working round the clock, Lord. But it outpaces their skills. He discovered Ilara inside the apothecary, her brow creased in deep concentration as she aided Sister Agnes. The air hung heavy with the pungent aroma of herbs and simmering broths. Ilara's sleeves were pushed up, her once immaculate gown bearing the marks of earth and foliage. Her focused efficiency took him aback. Ilara, he ventured, the name feeling stilted. This rot? She glanced up, her eyes meeting his briefly before returning to her task. We don't understand it, Aram. It manifests in a way I've never encountered. A ferocious fever often followed by a weeping pustule. Sister Agnes, her features etched with worry, added, We've exhausted our remedies, with little relief. Nightshade can break the fever for a time, but it always returns. Aram observed Ilara grinding dried leaves with steady skill. He noticed the dark crescents beneath her eyes, the weariness clinging to her like a second skin. For the first time he perceived not a delicate bloom, but a champion struggling alongside his people. What can I do to help? He asked, the question carrying an unintended note of desperation. Ilara paused, her gaze meeting his again. He saw no hint of self-satisfaction, only fatigue and a quiet strength. More water from the spring. And firewood. The nights are turning cold and the fevered need warmth. He dedicated the afternoon to hauling water and splitting wood, the steady rhythm of the axe providing a small measure of solace amidst the pervasive despair. He witnessed the fear in the villagers' expressions, the unspoken plea, would they be next? He saw the unwavering faith they placed in Ilara and Sister Agnes, the way they seized upon their every word, every compassionate gesture. That evening he encountered his father pacing before the hearth in the great hall. Theron's face was etched with worry, his normally booming voice subdued. The reports are dire, Aram, he said, his gaze fixed on the dancing flames. The plague infects every holding. We've lost 5 more today. We must isolate the afflicted, Aram suggested. Restrict passage between the towns. Theron sighed, rubbing his brow. Easier declared than done. These are a proud people, Aram. They will resist being confined like livestock. Better that than to see the entire land succumb. Aram's tone was firm, his earlier arrogance supplanted by a somber resolve. Theron studied his son, a spark of something akin to pride kindling in his gaze. See to it then. Muster the guard. But proceed with caution, Aram. We must inspire hope, not terror. As Aram turned to depart, Theron halted him. And Aram, he said, his voice softer. Protect Ilara. She possesses a rare gift for healing and a compassion that is desperately vital in these dark days. Aram nodded, offering no reply. He understood his father's intent, yet a peculiar disconnect persisted, a feeling of observing from afar. He witnessed Ilara's fortitude, her commitment, yet he struggled to fully acknowledge it, to overcome the chasm that separated them. He remained tethered to his preconceived notions, his unyielding pride forming a barrier to the truth that was beginning to dawn within him. Ilara's healing touch. The air hung thick and heavy, not just with the oppressive humidity of a late summer that refused to yield, but with the stench of sickness. Death clung to Thornhold like morning mist, chilling even the brightest hours. Yet, amidst the despair, a flicker of hope persisted, emanating from the makeshift infirmary in the village square. Ilara moved with a quiet grace, her hands stained brown from the poultices she'd been preparing since dawn. Her face, usually flushed with a delicate rose, was pale, etched with fatigue. But her eyes, those calm, hazel pools, held a steady light. She crushed dried feverfew between her fingers, the sharp, medicinal scent momentarily cutting through the cloying odor of decay. Sister Agnes, she called softly, her voice barely a whisper above the ragged coughs racking the room. Are there more running a high temperature? Sister Agnes, her face creased with worry lines that seemed to deepen with each passing hour, shuffled over, her heavy woolen robes dragging on the dirt floor. Too many, Lady Ilara. Our stores of willow bark are almost depleted, and the blessed water seems to offer little comfort now. Ilara nodded, unsurprised. The rot was a relentless enemy, immune to the usual remedies. We must look to other solutions. Have you gathered the wild thyme I requested? Agnes gestured to a basket overflowing with the fragrant herb, enough to fill every mattress in Thornhold. But will it truly help? It soothes the lungs, Ilara explained, her voice regaining a measure of strength. And the scent eases anxiety. Small comforts, perhaps, but comforts nonetheless. She began mixing the thyme with honey and a touch of elderflower cordial she'd managed to salvage from the manor stores. The combination smelled surprisingly pleasant, a welcome contrast to the pervasive stench of illness. She moved from patient to patient, her touch gentle but firm. She pressed cool cloths to fevered brows, spooned the thyme mixture into parched mouths, and whispered words of reassurance to terrified children. She had no grand pronouncements, no miraculous cures, only unwavering presence and quiet determination. Aram, standing awkwardly near the entrance, watched her. He'd been tasked with ensuring her safety, a duty he still resented even as a strange protectiveness stirred within him. He saw the villagers watching her too, their eyes filled with a mixture of hope and gratitude. They murmured her name, not with the hushed reverence they usually reserved for nobility, but with a warmth that bypassed rank entirely. Lady Ilara, a woman called out, her voice hoarse. God bless you, child. You're an angel sent to us. Ilara paused, her gaze meeting the woman's. I am no angel, she replied softly. Only a woman trying to help. But you are helping, a grizzled old farmer rasped from his sickbed. My grandson, little Thomas, was burning up something awful. You gave him that honey herb stuff and he slept. First proper sleep he's had in days. Aram saw Ilara blush, a delicate pink that momentarily banished the weariness from her face. She offered the farmer a small smile. Rest then. Sleep is the best medicine of all. Later, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and blood orange, Aram approached Ilara. She was sitting outside the infirmary, cleaning her hands with a rough linen cloth. You haven't rested, he observed, his voice gruff. Ilara looked up, her expression unreadable. There is little time for rest. My father, he began, then hesitated. The words felt clumsy, inadequate. He appreciates what you're doing. He's ordered extra supplies from Oakhaven. More willow bark, clean linens. Ilara simply nodded, returning her attention to her task. The people, they're talking about you, Aram continued, driven by some unseen force. They say you're kind. Ilara finally met his gaze, her eyes steady and unflinching. Is that so surprising, Aram? He shifted uncomfortably. I didn't think. He trailed off, unable to articulate his former prejudices, his ingrained assumptions about her meekness and lack of spirit. Ilara stood, her movements betraying the exhaustion she refused to acknowledge. Think what you will, Aram. But tonight, people are sick and dying. And I intend to help them. She turned and walked back into the infirmary, leaving Aram standing alone in the fading light, the weight of his past judgments pressing down on him like a physical burden. The aroma of thyme and honey lingered in the air, a testament to her unwavering dedication, a stark contrast to his own lingering doubts. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that Thorhold, and perhaps even he himself, had underestimated Lady Ilara Meadowsweet. A change of heart. The cloying sweetness of decay permeated the air, a constant, nauseating reminder of their plight. Aram leaned against the jamb of the converted barn, now a makeshift infirmary, his gaze fixed on Ilara. Each movement was a study in practiced care as she sponged the brow of a child burning with fever. Exhaustion had stolen the color from her cheeks, replacing it with a pallid weariness, carving lines of worry around her eyes. Yet, a fierce resolve burned undimmed within them. Days had blurred into a relentless cycle of quiet efficacy amidst mounting despair. He'd witnessed her coaxing life back into bodies with sips of broth, tending to the sick with unyielding fortitude, and whispering solace where none could truly reach. Only that morning she'd disarmed a villager gripped by fear who had taken up a pitchfork convinced the well was poisoned. Initially, Aram had misjudged her, dismissed her composure, her gentle nature as signs of fragility. His ambition had sought a partner forged for the saddle, the hunt, and the burdens of leadership, not one seemingly destined for needlepoint and delicate civilities. He'd been profoundly mistaken. Pushing off the rough-hewn frame, the scrape of wood against his jerk in a small disruption, he knew he could no longer stand idle. He'd volunteered to draw water, split wood, anything to escape the relentless specter of death. Ilara's nod acknowledged him, her gaze a brief, flickering ember before returning to the sick. The feverfew is dwindling, she'd rasped, her voice raw with fatigue. And we desperately need willow bark for the pain. He found her later, at the wood's edge, her basket nearly bare. The waning sun filtered through the canopy, painting shifting patterns on the forest floor. She knelt, meticulously studying a clump of herbs, her brow creased in concentration. Let me assist, he offered, his voice unused and husky. Surprise flickered across her features. You recognize these? He shrugged, suddenly awkward. My grandmother. Taught me a little. Mostly what to avoid. He gestured uncertainly. But I'm a quick study. Alara indicated a plant with lace-like leaves and tiny white flowers. This is feverfew. Only the flower heads. And over there she pointed towards a wizened willow, scraped the outer layer of bark, being careful to leave the tree intact. We need it alive, not dead. He watched her hands, deft and sure, demonstrating the process. Mimicking her, he was surprised by the subtlety required to differentiate the medicinal plants from the invasive weeds. More than once, his fingers strayed to the wrong leaf, corrected only by Alara's gentle but unwavering touch. He grunted with effort as he scraped the willow. You possess a knack for this. Alara paused, her gaze meeting his directly. There was no smug satisfaction, no vindication. Just a quiet, echoing sorrow. Someone must. The silence deepened, punctuated only by the rustling of leaves and the distant cries of unseen birds. He yearned to speak, to atone for his past arrogance, but the words remained locked within him. Instead, he focused on the task, the grating sound filling the void. As they labored, details he had previously ignored sharpened into focus. The way sunlight kissed her hair, transforming it into a halo of light. The faint furrow etched between her brows when absorbed in thought. The toughened skin of her fingertips, a testament to her dedication. He saw, not a fragile lady, but a woman of unyielding spirit. Back at the barn, as Alara prepared a new batch of tea, Aram found himself drawn to watch her again. The flickering candlelight cast elongated shadows, accentuating the dark smudges beneath her eyes, the etched lines around her mouth that spoke of her weariness. Yet she moved with unrelenting purpose, her energy a seeming wellspring. He contrasted her reaction to the plague, to his own. The crushing fear, the simmering anger, the instinct to withdraw. He had envisioned barricading himself inside the keep, protecting his own. Alara, conversely, had charged into the thick of it, offering solace and tending to the afflicted. He had judged her harshly, blinded by prejudice and preconceived notions. He had seen only what he expected to see, a delicate woman unfit for his station. He hadn't bothered to perceive beneath the surface, to acknowledge the courage and empathy that resided within. A wave of shame washed over him, swift and undeniable. Consumed by his own ambitions, he had failed to recognize the intrinsic value of the woman before him. He had a long way to travel, he knew. He still didn't fully grasp her, but he was beginning to discern. And what he now perceived was not the meek bride he had once scorned, but a woman of remarkable bravery and compassion. A woman slowly, irrevocably, transforming his very heart. The Baron's waning strength. The air in the Baron's chambers was thick with the scent of wood smoke and despair. It clung to the heavy tapestries, the polished surfaces, even the fur draped across the Baron's weakened frame. The vibrant man who had once commanded the hall was now a pale shadow, his breathing shallow and ragged. Aram felt a pang of guilt, sharper than any sword thrust, as he stood beside Alara, watching the life slowly ebb from his father. Theron's eyes, usually sharp and commanding, were clouded with pain and exhaustion. He beckoned them closer with a trembling hand, his grip surprisingly strong as he clasped both of theirs. Aram. Alara. His voice was a mere whisper, each word an effort. Come closer. I haven't much time. Aram knelt beside the bed, his usual bravado replaced by a raw vulnerability. Alara, ever composed, gently smoothed a stray lock of gray hair from Theron's forehead. Rest, my lord, she murmured. Save your strength. Theron shook his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. Strength is a luxury I no longer possess, child. But I have words I must speak while I still can. He coughed, a racking sound that shook his frail body. Alara quickly offered him water, which he sipped with a grimace. Aram, Theron began, his gaze locking with his son's. You have always been impetuous. Headstrong. Eager for glory. He paused, catching his breath. These are not always faults. Courage is a virtue, but it must be tempered with wisdom. Remember that, my son. Lead with your heart, but think with your head. Aram swallowed hard, his throat tight with emotion. He had always craved his father's approval, yet he had so often fallen short of his expectations. I will, father. Theron's gaze shifted to Alara, his expression softening. Alara, you came to us a stranger, yet you have shown more compassion and strength than I could have ever imagined. You have a gift, child. A rare and precious gift. Do not let anyone dim its light. He squeezed her hand, his grip weakening. Protect our people. Protect Aram. Elara met his gaze, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I will, my lord. I promise you. Theron closed his eyes for a moment, his chest rising and falling unevenly. I have not always been the best father or the best leader. I clung too tightly to the old ways, blinded by tradition. But you are the future. A future I will not see, but one I trust you to build. He opened his eyes again, his gaze sweeping over them both. Cherish each other. Find strength in one another. This world, it is a harsh and unforgiving place. But love is a shield against the darkness. Never forget that. A silence descended upon the room, broken only by Theron's labored breathing. Aram struggled to find the words to express the emotions churning within him. Regret, love, fear, and a newfound respect for the woman beside him. He reached out and took Elara's hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. Theron watched them, a faint smile gracing his lips. Good. He closed his eyes again, his breathing becoming shallower and more erratic. Remember, always, the land, the people. His voice trailed off, fading into a whisper. Protect them. The room remained still, the only sound the crackling of the fire in the hearth. Aram felt a tear escape his eye, tracing a path down his cheek. He looked at Elara, her face pale but resolute. She met his gaze, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and determination. In that moment, Aram knew that his life had irrevocably changed. The weight of responsibility, once a burden he resented, now felt like a purpose. He had a duty to his people, to his father's legacy, and to the woman who stood beside him, the woman who had shown him the true meaning of strength. A mother's lullaby. Theron's last breath shuddered out, a final rasp that amplified the sudden quiet. The hand cradled in Elara's slackened, an era of iron rule over Thorhold dissolved into oblivion. A hollow throb echoed in Aram's chest as he watched. Grief, a crushing wave, hadn't materialized. Instead, a strange numbness descended, a detached calm that allowed him to observe as a mere spectator. Elara's face, a canvas of sorrow that somehow dwarfed his own. The lingering fragrance of herbs hung in the air, a spectral reminder of the desperate fight. Even the candlelight seemed to yield to the encroaching darkness of finality. He stood paralyzed, his boots seemingly fused to the flagstones. His father's parting words weighed on him, an inheritance of power he felt utterly unprepared to manage. Elara's head was bent low, her sable hair veiling her features. He saw the subtle tremor in her shoulders, a silent language of unshed tears. After an age, she lifted her head, her eyes reddened but resolute. She brushed a wisp of silver from Theron's brow, a tender, almost sacred gesture. Then a hum began. Low and fragile, it seemed to emanate from the very stones of the chamber, a wordless balm. Aram's brow furrowed. The melody tugged at his memory, a phantom echo from years long gone. He hadn't encountered it since. Elara's voice, a bare exhalation, joined the hum. Sleep now, my baron, your watch is done. May dreams of green fields greet the sun. Aram caught his breath. The words, not just the sentiment, but the precise phrasing, the rise and fall of the tune. He hadn't heard them since he was a boy, nestled safe in his mother's arms, her voice a shield against childish nightmares. His mother. This was her lullaby. A secret melody shared only within those private walls, woven from love and yearning. He recalled the warmth of her embrace, the pervasive scent of lavender from her dresses, the catch in her throat as she reached the final lines. How could Elara possibly know it? He moved closer, eyes locked on Elara's face. Her eyes were shut, her expression serene, almost angelic. Her voice grew stronger, surer with each line, filling the void. The shadows gather, the stars ignite, chasing all sorrow with their gentle light. A tide of memories surged, breaking against the bulwark of his mind. He pictured his mother's kind face, her playful smile, the light dancing in her eyes. He recalled the solace her arms offered, a haven of safety lost with her death. His heart hammered, a frantic tattoo in the tomb-like silence. A maelstrom of questions, disbelief swirling within him. Where did Elara learn this? Had his father divulged it? Theron rarely spoke of his first wife, claimed by illness when Aram was scarcely 5. Why would he entrust such a deeply personal memento to Elara? The final notes faded, leaving behind a silence so complete it stung. Elara opened her eyes, meeting Aram's gaze. He saw no deception, only profound grief etched there. How did you ever hear that song? The question tumbled out raw and desperate. Ilara's brow creased. It's an old lullaby, Aram. I've known it my whole life. No, he insisted, his voice rising in protest. It's not just any lullaby. It belonged to my mother. She never sang it for anyone else. He caught a glimpse of surprise, rapidly replaced by an unreadable expression. Compassion? Comprehension? Something deeper, resonating with a forgotten part of himself. Aram, she murmured, her voice soft with concern. Perhaps you're overwhelmed. The Baron. Don't, he snapped, cutting her off sharply. Don't brush this aside. Tell me the truth, Ilara. How do you know that song? The silence stretched, thick with unasked questions. The flickering candles cast elongated, shifting shadows on the walls, transforming the familiar chamber into an arena of secrets. He waited, breath trapped in his chest, heart a frantic drum. He knew, with a chilling certainty, that Ilara's reply would alter everything. The secret revealed. How? The strangled word escaped Aram, his throat roughened by anguish and disbelief. He confronted Ilara in the sunset casting elongated shadows that mirrored the sudden eclipse of his understanding. How do you know that melody? Ilara met his gaze unflinchingly. Her violet eyes, typically pools of gentle empathy, now possessed a quiet fortitude, a knowing that both intrigued and unsettled him. Your mother taught it to me. A harsh scoff ripped from Aram, echoing in the sudden hush. Impossible. Only she and I ever knew it. Not impossible, Aram. Ilara's tone was soothing, a balm against his rawness. I encountered your mother years prior. He stared, his thoughts whirling. He recalled her vibrant spirit, her infectious laughter, her skill in the saddle, her fierce protectiveness. Then the insidious illness, the hacking coughs that shook her slender frame, her slow fading, like a rose deprived of light. But no memory surfaced of a confidant, certainly not a girl barely past childhood. When? Where did this happen? It was before your return from squire training, Ilara replied, her gaze flitting towards the window. I was foraging for herbs near the Whisperwind Cascades, the kind reputed to soothe skin ailments. Young and foolhardy, I strayed too far and fell, twisting my ankle severely. Your mother discovered me. Aram struggled to reconcile this picture of Ilara, vulnerable and in distress, with the resolute woman who'd tirelessly fought the pestilence. He envisioned the Baroness Thorn, renowned for her barbed wit and commanding aura, tending to a common villager in the wilderness. It felt discordant. She healed you, then? He inquired, skepticism sharpening his tone. Ilara shook her head. Not with sorcery, Aram. She bound my ankle expertly with herbs and with splints, conveyed me to the forest's edge, and sent for my kin. She remained at my side until succor arrived, conversing, bolstering my spirits. Her touch held such grace, her presence a calming tide. He remembered that touch. The feel of her palm against his fevered brow, the caress of her fingers through his hair as she spun tales of valiant knights and distant lands. During those long hours, Ilara continued, her voice a mere breath, we spoke. She confided in me about you, about your adventurous heart and your yearning for something beyond the confines of Thorn Castle. She shared her hopes, her anxieties, and then she sang. Why? The query was a desperate whisper. Why would she sing you, that particular song? Ilara turned, her gaze imbued with profound sorrow. She sensed a connection, a kindred spirit. A shared empathy, a desire to alleviate suffering. She perceived kindness in my heart, a resilience beyond my years. She declared the song a legacy, a fragment of her very being, and she wished to bestow it upon one who would grasp its essence, one who would hold it dear. A wave of nausea threatened to engulf Aram. His mother, so formidable, so guarded, had shared her most treasured memory with a stranger. A girl encountered in the woods. And that girl was now his wife. She believed, Ilara's voice rose with renewed conviction, that one day, you would need to hear it anew, that the weight of your burdens might obscure its significance. She entrusted me to safeguard it, to share it when the moment aligned. And Theron's death marked that moment? His passing gave you cause. Bitterness clung to Aram's words. No, Ilara murmured. The moment came when I witnessed the anguish in your eyes, the desolation threatening to consume you, when I understood your solitude, reminiscent of my own past, lost and afraid. That song, it's a beacon of love, Aram, of unity, of enduring hope. He scrutinized her, truly seeing her for the first time, and discovered not the plain, unassuming woman he had previously dismissed, but a soul of intricate depth, of profound strength. A soul entrusted with a secret for years, a secret gifted by his mother, a bond forged beyond his wildest imaginings. Why keep this hidden until now? He questioned, the anger dissipating, replaced by a budding sense of reverence. Alara hesitated, a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. I was apprehensive, she admitted, her voice barely audible. Afraid you wouldn't credit my words. Afraid you'd deem me presumptuous. And, I confess, Aram, your initial aversion made me reluctant to expose something so deeply personal. His aversion. He cringed inwardly. He had been blind, arrogant, and utterly foolish. He had judged her based on superficialities, on societal dictates, on his own insecurities. He had failed to recognize the luminous strength and unwavering compassion that emanated from her, the very traits that had captivated his mother so long ago. The last sliver of sun vanished below the horizon, cloaking the solar in deepening shadows. He extended a hand, trembling slightly, and brushed her cheek. Her skin was velvet soft, radiating warmth beneath his touch. Thank you, he whispered, the words meager yet brimming with a newfound sincerity. Thank you for cherishing her memory. Thank you for everything. Alara covered his hand with hers, her violet eyes luminous in the fading light. She understood you, Aram. She recognized the man you had the potential to become. A love song of thorn. A palpable tension filled the room, thick with years of unspoken grievances. Aram faced Alara, the candlelight catching in the depths of her verdant eyes, mirroring a fortitude he'd been too obtuse to acknowledge. The haunting melody of Thorn's lament lingered in his thoughts, a testament to a bond forged in mutual sorrow, not mere obligation. Alara, he began, his voice raspy with regret. I have acted the fool. He witnessed a fleeting shadow of hurt cross her face, swiftly veiled by her habitual composure. Aram, there's no need, there is every need, he countered, drawing nearer. I misjudged you, underestimated your capabilities, and treated you with a disdain utterly undeserved. I chased after glory, recognition, anything to flee the path laid out for me, and in my self-absorption I failed to perceive the genuine strength, the unwavering spirit that flourished right here. His hand trembled faintly as he gestured towards her. You confronted the pestilence with unwavering bravery, ministered to the afflicted with selfless dedication, and shouldered the burdens of this barony with a grace that eluded me. And all the while, he paused, swallowing thickly, I was preoccupied with my own trivial discontent. Alara extended a hand, her fingertips grazing his. Aram, the past is behind us. We have both evolved. But I need you to understand, he pressed on, that I see it now. I comprehend the woman my mother recognized in you. I grasp the profundity of your compassion, the tenacity of your soul. And he hesitated, his gaze locking with hers. I realize that I am irrevocably drawn to you. The confession hung suspended in the air, laden with sincerity. A delicate rose tinted Alara's cheeks. Aram. He captured her hand, his thumb tracing the intricate map of lines on her palm. Allow me to earn your absolution, Alara. Let me demonstrate that I am worthy of your affection, your faith, and your companionship. The ensuing days became a vibrant illustration of their blossoming alliance. They traversed the blighted fields side by side, assessing the devastation, distributing provisions, and offering solace to the bereaved. Aram, chastened by his past failings, absorbed Alara's counsel, appreciating her inherent understanding of the land and its inhabitants. He grew to value the quiet resolve in her tone, the unwavering resolve blazing in her gaze. He assisted in the reconstruction of homes, his capable hands wielding hammer and saw alongside the villagers. He listened to their narratives, their anxieties, their aspirations for a brighter future. Consequently, he began to perceive the barony not as a shackle but as a solemn duty and honor. No longer the disquieted son yearning for escape, he transformed into a leader devoted to his people. Simultaneously, Alara persevered in her healing endeavors, concocting powerful remedies from the tenacious herbs that stubbornly clung to life amidst the ravaged fields. She imparted novel sanitation and hygiene practices to the villagers, sharing her expertise with unhurried patience. She inspired them to cultivate new crops, to rebuild their existence, to discover hope in the face of despair. Gradually, painstakingly, the barony commenced its recovery. Fields once desolate now sported burgeoning life. Homes arose from the ashes. And the long shadow of the plague began to dissipate, supplanted by a delicate yet burgeoning sense of optimism. One twilight, as the sun dipped below the horizon, daubing the sky with strokes of fiery orange and regal purple, Aram guided Alara to the barony's apex, a windswept crest overlooking the valley. He had dedicated the afternoon to crafting a humble wooden bench, a simple token of his devotion. They settled in silence for a moment, their eyes sweeping across the revitalized terrain. "It is breathtaking," Elara murmured, her voice infused with wonder. "Though not as exquisite as you," Aram replied, turning to face her. He reached into his tunic, withdrawing a small, elaborately carved wooden box. He opened it, revealing a solitary, flawless wildflower, a tender bloom of meadowsweet. "I discovered it flourishing near the stream. A symbol of promise, of durability, of you." Tears glistened in Elara's eyes. "Aram." He took her hand, his gaze unwavering in its intensity. "Elara Meadowsweet, will you grant me the profound privilege of becoming my wife? Not out of constraint nor expectation, but out of abiding love." Her response was immediate. "Yes, Aram Thorn. With every fiber of my being." Their wedding became a jubilant celebration of existence, a living monument to the enduring strength of affection and optimism. The entire barony congregated in the newly resurrected village square, resplendent in their most elegant attire, their visages radiating happiness. The atmosphere vibrated with laughter, music, and the inviting sense of freshly baked bread and succulent roasted meats. Elara graced the occasion in a gown of shimmering silk, embellished with wildflowers and climbing vines, a gift from the grateful villagers. Her hair, cascading down her back like a river of moonlight, was adorned with a garland of meadowsweet. Aram, standing tall and proud at her side, wore a simple tunic of deep blue, the color of the Thorn family emblem. As they exchanged their vows, their voices ringing clear and strong, a sense of tranquility descended upon the barony. The plague remained a stark memory, yet it no longer instilled dread. It served as a reminder of their fortitude, their tenacity, and their unwavering commitment to one another and to their people. Aram clasped Elara's hand, his fingers interlacing with hers. He gazed into her eyes, perceiving not the unadorned bride he had once dismissed, but the remarkable woman he had grown to cherish, respect, and admire. He understood that together they could confront any adversity, surmount any obstacle. For they were not merely husband and wife, but partners, confidants, and leaders, united by a shared purpose and a love that had burgeoned amidst the wreckage of despair. They were Thorn and Meadowsweet, eternally entwined, forever linked by a love song whispered on the breeze.